morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to If Data Could Talk. I'm your host, Andy Cockgreave, and this week we're talking about sharks, great white sharks, and how we can use data, drones, and artificial intelligence to safely share the sea with them. I'm joined by Dr. Emma Critchley, who is project scientist at the Benioff Ocean Initiative. Emma, welcome to the show. Why don't you say a little bit more about yourself?
Thanks for having me, Andy. So as a project scientist at Benioff Ocean Initiative, I work on a variety of different projects related to using technology to solve conservation problems in the ocean. So we're really interested in finding out what issues there are in the ocean that we can use, develop applied technology to solve a problem, and then replicate that so others can use that technology. So I'm particularly interested in marine top predators and where they go. I did my PhD on seabirds, and now I'm working on sharks. And we are lucky enough to have a local population of sharks in Santa Barbara that we've been able to study and use for our SharkEye project, where we are using drones to monitor them and then developing AI technology that we can use to actually detect the sharks in the video footage that we're collecting.
Right, that sounds amazing. So, what is a top predator? More sharks, plus there must be others there, right?
Yeah, marine top predator, anything that's like at the top of the food chain that you can think about. So that's why like seabirds, they're at the top of the food chain. They've got no predators themselves. Sharks are, whales as well. I mean, if you just count humans, so they're the really big species that are fun to study and fun to track.
Right, and this is SharkEye is one of the main projects being done under the Benioff Ocean Initiative. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you're in Santa Barbara. You've got sharks. You've got technology. What was the genesis of the project, and what's the goal? What are we trying to do?
The project really came about because a number of different people noticed that the shark population the great white shark population in the local area was increasing. And so shark populations were much lower previously. They seem to be starting to recover in California, potentially because of some conservation measures to do with fisheries that are working, but there could also be climate change impacts where waters are warming up further north and they're moving around a bit more. So it's something that our research group had noticed, that locals using the beach noticed as well. And we thought, well, we can actually go study these sharks and try to see what's happening. And then we talked to our partners that we work with at Salesforce, who have been working on AI technology. And they thought, well, we might be able to provide a solution to help you better track the sharks.
I mean, I'm not much of a seafarer myself, so most of my shark knowledge comes from Jaws and headlines and sensationalist stories, but backed up by the evidence that they're not actually as risky as the media might portray. But I'm guessing monitoring sharks without AI is maybe carries risk, but also isn't it's hard to do in a consistent way. There's that the problem with traditional monitoring.
Yeah, you could put a GPS tag on a shark, but you have to find it, you have to catch it, you have to put it on and hope that it stays on and that you can continue to track it. So there's only a certain number of sharks that you can do that for. Sometimes you don't know that there's a shark in the water near you. So often people are in the water, don't realize there's sharks around, so they can be hard to spot if you're not covering a wide area. So the drones gives us the ability to cover a much wider area. And then the idea with the AI technology is that we can train it on cases where it's really difficult to spot a shark, and it can get really good at spotting those difficult cases.
All right. So Emma, have you ever put a GPS on a shark yourself?
I have not. I've put a GPS on a seabird, and that's challenging. Yeah, they like to attack you. They don't really like it. So.
Wow. And then did you get incredible data tracks?
Yeah. The seabirds I was studying, they fly out to the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, and they're going hundreds of kilometers. So it's pretty cool to see that. That is
pretty amazing, but not practical. And you only get one GPS tag per bird. So here we are. We're going to try and automate shark processing. Excellent. How hard can it be? It's what kit do you need to even start the process? How did the project get going? What equipment did you have? Where did the AI come into it?
What we wanted to do was build something that could be replicated, because the idea is that we're building a tool that will work for our situation, and then we hope will work for other situations as well. So there's lots of different areas like Hawaii, the east coast of the US, Australia, where they've got, shark populations that are quite close to shore and they really need to keep an eye on them. So we're hoping that this is something that we can replicate in other areas. So with that in mind, when we were thinking about equipment, we bought an off-the-shelf drone so that it was something that was easily accessible to everyone. We kept our equipment to a minimum. So we're hoping that it's something that anybody can do. So there's that side, but then the AI side is a lot more challenging. And so we've been working on developing that and building an AI model that can then be used by others. So they don't have to go through that process of actually training the AI, because that means you have to collect hundreds of hours of video footage from the drones. You have to go through the whole training process. You have to go through the testing process to make sure it's detecting all of those really difficult cases. So we're planning that that's something we will work on, and it's something that then can be used by others in the future.
All right. So is the drones doing automated flights, or is somebody lucky enough to go and fly a drone out on the beach every day?
Yeah, so we've got a team of drone pilots that do our flights every day. So we fly every day. We were originally flying just in the mornings, but we realized that actually sometimes we can have higher abundance of sharks in the afternoons. So we've been mixing up our flights to try and get a better understanding of the patterns. And what we do is we fly a standardized transect along parallel to the shore one way, then we go a bit further out from the shore and fly back parallel again. We're flying at about a height of about 40 meters to try and get a good overview as we can. And we've realized that's about the limit of where we can see a good range of area, but we can also spot the sharks easily enough. And so they're doing, the reason they do a standardized transect as well is that helps us day on day figure out what the abundance is. So for our statistical analysis later on, it's a good scientific method to follow.
And how do you know you've seen a shark? Because I guess are they distinct from you're taking an aerial photograph, so are they distinct to see, or is that one of the keys to the challenge?
Yeah, so that's definitely one of the challenges that can come about. If it's a good day, if there's good visibility, if it's pretty calm seas, then you can see it instantly. The shape is so recognizable of a great white shark when it's swimming. Once you've looked at enough videos, when you compare it to a dolphin or a seal, you're like, oh no, that's definitely a shark. So once it's close enough to the surface, our drone pilots can detect it. It's when we get to we've got a lot of sun glare or it's foggy, it gets more challenging.
And you say you can tell the difference between a shark and a dolphin. I guess I could probably learn that. Is training an AI as hard as training Andy Cockgreave, or is training an AI actually harder than that?
That's a good question. I don't think we've done a test of human versus AI. Probably we can tell you the rules of what it looks like, but for the AI to understand those rules, we need to give it a lot of footage.
Right.
Because what we're doing when we're training the AI is we're trying to get the balance between recall, where it just detects everything that's in the water, and accuracy, where what it detects is definitely a great white shark. So there's a lot of testing of parameters to get it right, that it's not just showing you everything that could be a great white shark, that it's giving you something that it's confident is a shark.
And how's that aspect of the project been going? Is that working out, or is that turning out to be harder than you expected?
It's definitely a slow process in terms of doing it, but we partnered with Salesforce to develop this AI model, and we've been lucky enough to move from what we were previously using, which was just an image detection model where you give it a static JPEG and you give it lots of those. We're now moving to using a video service where the AI runs directly on the video. It's quicker, it's easier to train it hopefully as well, and it means you can track sharks as they move through frames, which is, for me, is a game changer, because it's a really good way to also study their behavior and see how they're moving.
All right, that's amazing. So has this kind of AI tracking been done before?
So it's definitely starting to become more popular. So you can now get off-the-shelf AI, essentially. You can download a program, you can train the AI yourself. And so people are starting to do it more. The challenge is definitely having enough good quality footage to actually train the model. And then what we're hoping to do is integrate this into our survey program, integrate this into the way that we send out notifications about shark sightings. So it's all one streamlined process.
Right. Oh, fantastic. And what kind of insights what's been the output so far? Have you managed, have there been some great insights you've discovered? What are we learning?
So we started this in 2019, where we were kind of just figuring out what we were doing. And we saw, I think it was about 70 sharks the last 2 years. Even up to August of 2021, we've seen over 200 sharks. So we think what we've been seeing is an increase in population size. We still have to, account for certain factors, but it does look like we're lucky enough that the moment we started to monitor these sharks populations, we're also seeing an increase in population size. And so we've just started to look into comparing the data for 2021 to our population study for 2020 to compare how things vary month on month. And it looks like both years we might have had a dip around July. We might then have numbers climbing back up in August. So we're starting to get a bit more insight into the seasonal patterns, which is really interesting because we were quite surprised last year that we had flew our drone surveys up until mid-December. We were expecting by November all the sharks would be gone, because they don't like the cooler waters. They tend to move further south when things start to cool down. So we're definitely already learning things that we didn't know we would.
Is there a safety aspect here? I mean, is this increasing danger of the beachgoers on Santa Barbara and possibly other beaches as well?
Not that we've seen at the moment. So it does seem that the sharks generally ignore people in the water. They're a bit curious, but they don't really bother them. And the population, when we first started looking at, was mostly juvenile white sharks. And so these are classified as sharks that are generally less than 8 feet. So that's what the California lifeguards classify juvenile white sharks as.
Right.
And so that we thought this was almost like a white shark nursery, because it's a nice safe space for the sharks as well.
Yeah.
What we've seen in the last year is that possibly the population is shifting a bit. So we're getting more larger sharks. And when we get larger sharks, that's when they're turning into adults. And so they're shifting their diet from fish to mammals. And so they're not going to intentionally attack anyone, but there is always the risk they could confuse you for a seal. So there is a slight increase in needing to be a bit more cautious.
Like all good data collection projects, you're beginning to collect data, and is that giving you hunches for which you need more data? Is that the situation? What's going to happen in the next, say, year, 2 years with the project?
Yeah, definitely. We're starting to think about all the questions we have and think about what's the other data we can collect that might help explain what's going on. So we've also, alongside this, been collecting environmental data about water temperature, about other conditions in terms of visibility, to try and figure out, is there something that's driving the changes in population that we're seeing? So that is the next step, is to dig into the data and also to try and understand the limitations of what we're seeing. So we're only seeing a snapshot of the sharks at a certain time. So that's just what we can estimate as the shark population. But we need to figure out, what are the sharks that we're not seeing, and how can we then account for that and get a better estimate of the population and what's going on.
That's incredible. And how's the progression to the goal of making this a repeatable process? So, could we go and do this in a beach in South America or South Africa? How is that within reach, or is that still quite a big target?
So the challenge with that is that we're training our AI model on Southern Californian sharks and those conditions. And if we go to Brazil or if we go to Hawaii, there's going to be different water conditions. So we need to give the AI some footage that teaches it about great white sharks in those locations. So the next step would be for us to get that footage, hopefully find a researcher that's working in those areas that's already been doing some of their own monitoring using drones, retrain the AI. It wouldn't be as intensive because it already knows a white shark. It just needs a bit more conditions to figure it out. And then once we've got that, we could hand over this version of the AI that they could integrate into their monitoring program.
I think that's fascinating. And, you know, a lot of our audience will be thinking about AI and machine learning in their own data applications. And, you know, I think what are the lessons you've learned from the, you know, it's like, we're going to use AI to track sharks. That's a great headline statement. And then, you know, 2.5 years into the project, you know, what have been the biggest challenges on that, actually turning that into or realizing the opportunity?
I think, the biggest challenge is certainly just the amount of footage you need to collect and the amount of time it takes. And ecological data is always messy. There's no guarantee on a given day what you're going to get. There's no guarantee, you know, you'll collect enough footage in a week. So we're kind of working within those parameters and trying to collect as much data as we have. So we're lucky we've got, you know, 2 years worth now to work with, it took a lot of time to collect, and then takes quite a bit of time to train the model using that data. So a lot of it is time, and when we're training the model as well, there's still a human aspect. So with the footage that we collect, we then have to go through it and mark when we spot a shark. So we've had a team of undergrads who've sat at their computer screens and just drawn boxes around sharks, essentially being a human version of the AI. So that then we can feed that into the model and say, look, here's the shark. That's taken a lot of time as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think, you know, we hear a lot of our customers at Tableau and Salesforce saying that, well, we're going to try and do AI. And then it's like, oh, hang on a minute. It's really hard. Because, yes, you need a vast amount of data, Well, look, this is absolutely fascinating stuff. So if hopefully people watching want to go and find out more about SharkEye, what can they do to find out more about you and the project as it grows?
So we have a website at sharkeye.org, so people can visit that to find out more about the project. We also have, on our website, we have a dashboard where we update our daily sightings of sharks as well. So that's a great way to see what's happening, what are we seeing at the beaches. We've been trying to track trends in sharks as well as just our sightings. We've got kind of a 7-day rolling average, and that really helps you to understand how we see these patterns as we move through the seasons. And then if people are really interested, they can sign up for text notifications. So you'll get a text message every time we spot a shark.
Oh, all right. That sounds good. So that's sharkeye.org. All right. So go check that out and see the sharks in Santa Barbara. Well, Emma, thanks so much. It's been really interesting. I think, you know, who isn't interested in sharks? Surely, you know, that's a great topic. But underneath that, this whole subject of getting an AI project up and running is something we all need to learn about. And hearing your lessons today has been really insightful. So thank you very much for your time today. To everybody watching, go check out sharkeye.org. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And we will see you all on the next episode of If Data Could Talk. Have a fantastic day wherever you are. Goodbye.